Good afternoon, Waxahachie and people of the internet to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun,
And I'm David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine.
and we're here to talk about our latest movie, which is Philadelphia this week.
Yes, sir. So, Philadelphia is a 1993 drama starring Tom Hanks and not Samuel Jackson, Denzel Washington. Fun fact: was born in 1993, so this movie literally came out same year I was born. The movie is about a lawyer who contracts AIDS. He's fired due to his condition and due to his sexuality. And he consults in the help of a fellow lawyer in Denzel Washington to, um, you know, go to the courts with his former company. Um, I don't know about you, Andy, but I didn't have much familiarity with this movie prior to watching it. I had very little insight to it. Like I knew Tom Hanks won Best Actor from this movie. I knew that the director Jonathan Demme previously won an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs. So, movie has some big names attached to it, but I myself have never seen it before. Was your background with watching this movie?
You
When
know,
did you
I had seen clips of it. I knew Hanks won his Oscar for it. It is one I'd always wanted to see in its entirety, but just never really had gotten around to it. And I thought, well, we're doing this whole deal with video reviews, and I thought, it's a classic. It needs to be watched, and I just thought it'd be a good pick for us this week.
Absolutely, yeah. A good pick is definitely the word for it, man. One thing I was really absorbed by this movie, I really loved how much it humanized the issue of the AIDS epidemic. Obviously, the central character in this movie is gay, but the movie touches on the fact that, yeah, whenever this was going on, this was not just homosexuals dealing with this. There was also several other people. There were straight people, people that got blood transfusions. The issue was kind of far-reaching, and the fact that this company, judged this man who was very, very good at his job because of that circumstance. It shows you how judgmental people in this era was, and it was just it was at times it was very uncomfortable to watch. It was very maddening to watch.
Well, definitely, and I think this film touches on AIDS and touches on uh, people's sexual orientation, but I think it also points to kind of a larger issue that we're still dealing with today, which is bigotry. Um, it shows that how I'm going to say how stupid people's views can be, and how hurtful people's views can be, and how damaging that can be on a society. But it also shows kind of a redeeming factor where a person can kind of take an inward self-examination of what uh, Denzel Washington's character did and learn from what he was projecting as a person out there and kind of changed who he was.
Exactly, and I think it's funny. This is the second time we're talking about Denzel Washington, like within a 2 week period.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do agree. His character is great in the movie. Initially I was wondering if he was the main character in the film because he does go through the biggest arc in the movie.
Yeah.
But really, it isn't. It's really is just it's a mirroring of these two men and their perspective. Tom Hanks obviously coming from the perspective of a gay man who's made mistakes, but he isn't without redemption, just like anyone else is. Then you have this other character over here, Denzel Washington, who kind of has his own prejudices and his own kind of views on things. And it shows where they kind of come together, meet in the middle, to acknowledge each other's humanity. I think that was a very special part of this movie that kind of gets overlooked in the conversation nowadays. And you're absolutely right. It does. Um, it it heartened me, but it also kind of disturbed me at how this movie was made 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and it's just as relevant today, if not more so, than it was back in the 1990s.
Well, I think the only difference is people who hold prejudice like this are not as vocal as they were back then. It is still there's still a prejudice, and there's still harmful beliefs and thoughts like this that are still present, which is a sad thing to say. And
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I do think it's still a very relevant film. I still think it's a very important film, and I do think it's something that everybody needs to watch.
I definitely concur with that, my friend. I actually also really liked. I really liked seeing Jonathan Demme take on this material. Like I said, he previously won an Oscar for Best Director, and it also won Best Picture. You know, the Anthony Hopkins, Jodie Foster horror film *Silence of the Lambs*. I love that movie too, and I think it's, you know, a great demonstration for the genre. But it's really nice seeing that director kind of step out of, you know, that zone, that project that he's most well known for, and take on something with more seriousness, more drama, more really kind of a grounded reality. It really made me want to explore the rest of his filmography, what else he's done, because there's some really, really emotional moments in this movie. There's one scene where Tom Hanks's character, Andrew Beckett, he talks about, you know, the emotions behind opera, and it's just a powerfully acted, a wonderfully edited scene. It makes you feel so much for this guy's circumstance. And there's another part of the movie where it's a courtroom scene. You can clearly tell that AIDS is taking a physical toll on Andrew's body, and the cinematography, you notice from cinematographer Tak Fujimoto, the camera with each shot is slowly canting to the side a little bit by bit by bit, by cut by cut by cut. It just shows you the state of mind Andrew is in and how he's just slowly losing grip with consciousness. It's like, oh my God,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just hard to watch.
I mean, Hanks's performance was just something else to watch. I read that throughout the movie that they made Denzel gain a little bit of, you know, like 20 or so pounds for the role, but Hanks had to take off like 26 pounds as the film progressed, because of to show the effect that the HIV virus, you know, had on him. And I read that Denzel would be sitting next to him on set, and Hanks would just be eating a chocolate bar just to kind of keep going, which I thought, wow, that's just real dedication to kind of portray that role. And what's interesting is that this movie is not one that's fictional. It does have a certain grain of truth to it. When I was kind of looking up more about it, it's actually based on parts of a age discrimination lawsuit that was made by Jeffrey Bowers in 1986, who was kind of
Wow.
fired by his law firm, which was a law firm like Hanks's was, as Andrew Beckett, for you know, he kind of filed for a discrimination lawsuit under kind of the same circumstances. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
It definitely was, and I do like that. One thing I kind of noticed in the movie that I just thought it was interesting is that, you know, Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington's characters, obviously they start at different points in the movie, and later on they do better at meeting in the middle on subjects. But Denzel Washington doesn't really, you know, he doesn't escape from his biases. He still kind of harbors those same feelings he does about homosexuality. He still has a sense of, oh, he doesn't agree with it, but he cares enough about this guy who's become his friend to the point where he can acknowledge that he's important, he has rights, and he deserves just as much a place in this world as anyone else does. I really like the movie. Kind of cuts through all the political BS, and it just kind of shows, hey, under any other circumstance, would this be acceptable? Should this be acceptable? What kind of a society do we want to be? Do we want to be one that's driven by prejudice, or do we want to be driven by one that's driven by love? I think that's a great sentiment this movie shows, and man, oh man, like, what a picture, what a subject.
Well, and you can ultimately see how his view is shaped over time and how it changes and how he sees himself in the wrong.
Yeah, true. And then, yeah, I definitely see that as well. But
But
yeah, this was definitely a special picture. I really appreciated seeing this. It really makes me curious to see Jonathan Demme's other work.
yeah,
And it makes me want to see, oh, where does it go from here? Type of ordeal.
yeah, it definitely makes me, like you said, curious to see other works that Jonathan Demme has done, and just for me, I would have to give this picture probably 9 out of 10. They're just for the fact that nothing to do with its story, but it is an older film. There's a little bit of age to it, but other than that, I mean, I thought it was great.
Yeah, there definitely is some age to it. I would say the pacing, it is a very slow paced film at first. It definitely takes a lot of time to gradually build up on its characters, its premise, its story. So it definitely takes time. It's definitely a little slow and meandering, but I wouldn't say it's wasteful. I would say it definitely has taken the time needed to set up these characters and take you on this, small, intimate journey. I do agree it's slow. Maybe there are some scenes you could cut a little more quickly to, be more succinct. It is a 2-hour picture. But that's minor. I wouldn't, it doesn't rob the experience overall. And I do agree with you. I would give this a 9 out of 10. On that note, I have a question, Andy, because as we both mentioned, Tom Hanks was great in this movie. He absolutely deserved the Oscar. Which Oscar-winning performance do you think was better? Do you think this was a better Hanks performance, or do you think Forrest Gump was
that's a tough one. That's like
right?
like splitting the baby, so to speak. I mean,
Yeah, it's so tough.
I would say I'd probably say this just for the at the time it was made and the message that it had. I would say that Philadelphia was definitely that's the film I would pick.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because you look when this movie was made, I was in elementary school at the time, and we heard very little about HIV. I mean, that was kind of the new thing to teach students about it. The only celebrity that I knew that had HIV was Magic Johnson.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with it. Like we both agree that the urgency, the importance of it is definitely there. I do think I have to lean, like, as far as sticking strictly to performances, I do prefer Hanks more in Forrest Gump. That's just such a timeless role, and it's such a charismatic role. I think he just shines so much in it. Whereas this is definitely more soft spoken. It is definitely more personal. But I do agree. They're both great performances. Like you said, it's like picking your favorite baby.
Yeah. So, well, I think that will do it for this edition of the Critics Corner. So, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions of what we want to see in films, shoot us an email. Myself at Andrew Branca at Andrew@Waxahachiesun.com, or
David at southlakestyle.com.
that will do it. And I guess we'll hopefully see each other on the couch next week, or at the theater if they're open up again. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll look at that soon enough.
okay, that should do it. And y'all take care.
Okay, take care, y'all.